everybody, and welcome to the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria's Family Sunday. I am April Caverhill, and I get to facilitate this wonderful event every month. Today, I am talking to you from my studio in Saanich. It's on the traditional territories of the Songhees, Esquimalt, Sartlip, Sayout, Malahat, Sakem, and Pakwachin nations. The AGGV is located on the traditional territories of the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. And I am grateful and thankful to be working and learning on these Indigenous lands. Our theme today is Let's Be Lighthearted, and I will tell you why. November, it can be a little bit drab, can it? Leaves are falling, the rain has come, Halloween is behind us, and the celebrations of December are still weeks away. We need something to cheer us up. So, we have invited Victoria improv artist and storyteller Dave Morris to join us. He is someone who really knows how to make us smile and be lighthearted. So, if you would like to join us in all the activities that Dave's got planned for us, why not grab a few things from around the house like some markers or crayons or pencils, several sheets of paper, and if you have them, some dice, a bowl, or a hat, and a hat. Thanks for being part of Family Sunday. Now let's join Dave.
All right. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, April. And to the rest of you, welcome to Family Sunday. I'm Dave Morris, and I am your guest artist for this month with the wonderful theme of Let's Be LightheARTed. Lighthearted, which I think means we're going to be lighthearted and make art, which is true. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I am an improviser here in Victoria. I run an improv company called Paper Street Theatre. And what we do is, you guessed it, improvise, which means when we make art, we make it up on the spot. In the moment, we find what we're going to do. We discover the art that we're going to make right in front of an audience. And that's what me and you, and your friends around you are going to do today, is make some art that takes place just in that one moment. Doesn't that sound great? I'm excited. Anyway, so there's a few things you're going to need in order to do this. Of course, one of those things is going to be some paper. You're going to need some paper. It can be plain paper or colored paper, whatever you like, whatever you have around is fine. Just make sure you have a lot of it because we will be needing quite a bit of it. The next thing you're going to need is something to draw with, so markers or crayons or any pencils or anything you have laying around. And the next thing you're going to need is, of course, some scissors, because we're going to cut that paper into little smaller pieces. And then the final thing you're going to need is a dice. Now, if you don't have a dice, you can get by with just a bowl instead, but a dice makes it a little more fun because you get to roll it and it makes a cool sound. And there is one last thing you're going to need. And this last thing may be the most important thing of all, because improvising is about collaborating with other people and creating things together in the moment, not just by ourselves. So what you're going to really need is other people. So if you're watching this video by yourself, feel free to continue watching and enjoy the video. But if you want to try a lot of these exercises, you might need to go grab a friend or a family member or a neighbor and bring them over and say, hey, you're watching this video with me. And then together we can make some art. Okay, so if you don't have all of those things, you can just pause the video and go grab those things. And I'll give you like a nice face to pause on while you go get those things. So why don't you go ahead and pause right now. Okay, I'm assuming you're back and that you have some paper and some crayons and maybe another person with you. And now we can move on to our first exercise, which is just going to be a little improv drawing exercise. So for this exercise, what you're going to do is you and your friend are going to get a piece of paper, and you're going to use the same piece of paper. The first person is going to take a marker and draw on that piece of paper, and you can draw anything you'd like, except I want it to be abstract. So abstract means not something we recognize. So don't draw a smiley face or a horse or even a bell or an anchor. We want it to be something abstract that when you look at it, you don't recognize it to be a thing. So for instance, here's an example. I'm going to draw some squiggly lines, and then maybe just like a line in the air there, and over here a circle. There we go. So it doesn't really look like anything in particular. It's just some random shapes. And then you're going to hand the paper to your partner, and your partner is going to take a different colored marker so that we can tell whose drawing is whose, and they're going to complete that drawing and turn it into a picture. So here we go. Let me try. Yeah, see, I can do this here. Look at that. Great. There, now that looks kind of like a boat. And then I'll turn that into a sun, and I'll add a few more waves here so there's no mistaking that it is a boat on the water. Pretty cool, right? And that's the exercise. So once you're finished with one drawing, then you're going to draw another squiggly lines. Here we go. I'll do it one more time. Draw some lines, just maybe 4 lines on a piece of paper, and there we go. Little upside down C or something. Great. And then my partner would take it and quickly, without thinking, and that's something that's very important here, is you don't want to overthink what you're drawing. You just want to draw it so it looks like a face. There we go. Look at that. Looks like a face. Pretty good. And then your partner would draw some squiggly lines for you, and you would complete the drawing, and you just keep going back and forth like that. Because this is the thing about improvising, is improvising is about taking one idea and adding on to that idea. So your idea here is just some random squiggles that your partner is giving you, and then you are going to turn those squiggles into something beautiful. So why don't you take a few moments to try that with your partner now. You can pause the video. Don't worry, I'll wait here. And when you're done trying it, we can come back and we'll move on to the next exercise. Here, I'll give you something great to pause on. You can pause on this. Pause on this. Great. Okay. I think you're back now. And I hope that was as much fun as it sounded like. I heard a bunch of laughter through my camera there. So I assume that it was just like the best game you've ever played in your life, which, you know, I wouldn't be surprised because I made it up. Okay, now this game as well, this drawing game, is a fun one to try if you're at a beach and you just have some sticks, because you can just draw in the sand and then your partner can complete it, and then you erase it and you draw it again and again, and you can just keep doing it like that. But again, the same idea is there. You're giving someone some random ideas and they're turning them into something real. Cool. So the next game we're going to play is a similar idea of being inspired by some other people's art. So this is just a little drawing association game. And what you're going to do is on your piece of paper, you're going to draw a picture of something. It can be anything. I wouldn't worry too much about it being good, just a picture of something. Like, for instance, here is a picture of a hand. Ta-da! I'm not that great of an artist. And then my partner is going to look at the picture that I drew for them, and they're going to see a hand, and maybe they are inspired by that to associate off of that, and they're going to draw a foot. Again, I'm not the greatest artist, but they're going to draw a foot. And then you're going to look at the foot that they drew, and you're going to think, okay, what does a foot make me think of? A foot makes me think of maybe a ball. And I'm going to draw a little soccer ball. I don't know what a soccer ball looks like, but I think that looks close enough to one. Great. And they're going to look at the soccer ball, and they're going to think, okay, what do I think of when I think of a soccer ball? And maybe they're going to draw a hockey stick. There we go, because the hockey stick has something to do with soccer ball, and so on and so forth. And you're just going to draw these pictures back and forth and inspire each other to draw different things. Don't worry about them all coming together into one magnificent story or picture or anything like that. We're just kind of getting our inspiration muscles ready. Okay, so why don't you try that with your partner now? And when you're done, come back, and you know what? I'll still be here. I'll give you something to pause on. You can just pause on this picture of me and go. I don't know if you're back. Are you back? Okay, you're probably back. Otherwise, I wouldn't be moving. Okay, how was that? I hope it was good. Hope you got some fun, inspiring pictures from your partner, and I bet as they went on, you got a little more loose with it, right? And that's what we want. We want to kind of just like get those creative ideas flowing. Don't overthink it. Don't work too hard. This is just having some fun and doing some drawings. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is another improv drawing game, because that's something I like to do. And this one is a little different. So this one, what we're going to do is we're each going to draw pictures, and then we're going to look at each other's pictures and try and draw a picture that matches those pictures together. Okay, so for instance, watch, I'm going to do an example here. I'm going to secretly draw a picture of something. There we go. I've secretly drawn a music note. And then my partner over here is going to secretly draw something as well. And it can be anything you want. It can be a face, it can be a number, it can be just an object of something. Great, so there we go. So over there, I drew a clock. So then, once we've both drawn our pictures, we're going to show each other. So you see my music note and I see your clock. And then, this is where it gets exciting. We're going to draw another secret drawing, but this secret drawing is going to try to combine both of those other drawings. So I'm not just going to draw a clock with a music note on it, because that just kind of just mashes them together. What I want to do is try to meet them halfway. So what do I think of when I think of a clock and a music note? And what I think of is something called a metronome, which is something pianists use to keep time. I guess all musicians do it, to keep time. So I would secretly draw a metronome, and I would show it to my partner. And they would secretly draw whatever they think a clock and a music note have in common. So maybe they didn't think metronome. Maybe they thought this over here. Maybe they thought of drawing an alarm clock, because it's like a clock that makes noise, right? And then we would show each other our secret drawings and look at them and go, oh, you drew an alarm clock and I drew a metronome. So those aren't the same quite, but we got closer to each other. And then what we're going to do is take those two new drawings that we drew, a metronome and an alarm clock, and we're going to try and put them together. So what do you think of when I think of a metronome meeting an alarm clock? I think of a person who is sleeping with that metronome kind of snore. And I would show it to my partner, and they would show me theirs, and we would see if they're the same or if they're different. If they're different, we just keep going until we draw something that is the same. And if we manage to draw the same thing, we go, hooray, and celebrate, and high five, and hug, and cry in celebration. And then we do it again. Okay, so just to review, that is secretly drawing pictures, showing them to each other, trying to draw a picture that combines both those images, and then showing them to each other again and again and again. Great. So why don't you give that a try now with your partner, and I'll be here waiting for when you get back, and we'll do some more fun improv drawing stuff. All right. I'll give you something to pause on. You can pause on this. All right. Ugh. That was a hard pose to hold for that long. Ugh. Welcome back. We're going to move on to our next activity, which is, of course, an improv story game. Ta-da! Yeah, so now we're going to make up some stories, because this is the thing that improvisers do the most when we make stuff up, is we like making stories. So how we're going to do it is we're going to use two very important words, and those words are yes and. Right? Pretty simple words, but pretty profound implications, okay? So the word yes is about taking someone else's idea and accepting it. The word and is about finding another idea and adding it on to that idea. Yes and. What we were just doing in those drawing games was a version of yes and. You would make some random squiggles, I would say yes, and I'm going to turn it into a boat. or you would draw a alarm clock, and I would go, yes, and that makes me think of a sleeping person. So we accept it and we add to it. So what we're going to do for this game, it's a little story game, and you can do this by writing it down, or if you'd rather, you can do it out loud and just talk it if that's easier for you. So here's how it works. The first person is going to say the first line of a made-up story, so or write the first line. Here, I'll do it writing so you can watch. You're going to write the first line, which might be something like, once upon a time there was a tree. Pretty simple first line of a story. Once upon a time, there was a tree. And then my partner is going to write the words, yes, and then write the second line of a story. In that tree lived some squirrels. Excuse my spelling. Perfect. Once upon a time there was a tree, yes, and in that tree lived some squirrels. Not an amazing story yet, but it is starting to sound like a story. And then my partner would once again write yes, and continue the story. So why don't you give that a try, and when you're done, come back here, and I'll be here waiting. I'll give you something nice to pause on. Okay, great. I assume you're back, and I assume you are laughing, because those kinds of stories tend to find ourselves somewhere we weren't expecting to go, which is, of course, the beauty of improvisation. So I hope you got to experience a little bit of that. Great. So the next thing we're going to do is similar to that last game, except it's going to be writing a story or telling a story one word at a time. Okay, so we don't have to say yes and this time. Instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to write the first word of a story, or say the first word of a story. So I would write once. And then my partner would write the next line of the story, upon a time, and we just keep switching every word. There was a little birdie. There we go. Once upon a time there was a little birdie. What a wonderful way to start a story. But what we're going to do is just one word at a time work our way through the story. And if you thought that last one was fun, I think you're going to find this one to be even more ridiculous as it slowly falls off the rails. So why don't you give that a try right now? I'll be right here when you get back. I hope you paused it. If you didn't pause it, I'm just looking really weird doing this. Okay, but I guess you're back now. And I hope that was as much fun as I told you it was going to be, because I always have fun making up stories like that too. The nice thing about that little word at a time game that we just did is you can do it in a lot of different variations. So one of the ones I like to do is I like to do a word at a time poem instead of a story, so that it doesn't need to make as much sense, and you can just write poetic lines like the trees breathe with a sneeze, whatever you like. Or you could also do it as a letter to somebody. So you could write like Dear Santa or Dear Grandma and make a little word at a time letter to somebody. So those are like some different variations of that same game that are just as fun, if not more fun, because it gives you a little bit more of a structure to play within other than just a story. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is one of my favorite things. We're going to make up a game. Okay, well, I've already made up a game. I'm gonna tell you about it, but you're gonna make the game. So for this, what you're gonna need is some paper and those scissors we talked about earlier, right? And what you're gonna do is cut that paper into some squares or rectangles, whatever works. I'm gonna cut mine into squares. Great, and then once you have those squares cut up, you're going to divide them up between you and your friend or your friends or your family, so that everyone has about the same amount, right? You want to have like 3 or 4 little squares of paper. And then on each of those squares of paper, you're going to draw a picture of something. Anything you want at this time. Maybe something you'd recognize. So not like the abstract drawings we did before. So for instance, you might draw, here I'll give you some examples. You might draw a person with an umbrella standing in the rain. Okay, there we go. That's my first drawing. Again, don't worry about these being amazing drawings. They just need to be drawings. The next one, let's say maybe I'll draw a clock again, because those are nice and easy to draw, and I know I can draw them. So there's my clock. And then the last one I'm going to draw is, here we go, I'll try something that I don't normally draw. Okay, that doesn't look like anything. Okay, it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's not the best. I'm not a drawer. There we go. But that looks enough like a dinosaur. Great. So those are my three. You draw whatever three things you want to draw. And once everyone has drawn their three things, we're going to take them and shuffle them all together like a deck of cards. And then the person will take turns, and the person who goes first will flip over the top three pictures. So here we go. So let's say you flipped over my three pictures. And then they're going to make up a story using those three pictures. Okay, so here's an example. Maybe you flipped mine over and you would say, you'd say something like, once upon a time, there was a man waiting for the bus in the rain. And he was miserable. He was looking down at the ground, sad, because it was raining. And out of the corner of his eye, he saw, glimmering in the muck, a pocket watch. So he went over and picked it up. But the moment he touched that pocket watch, something happened. It started spinning, and lightning struck him, and he was transported through time back to the prehistoric age, where he found himself face to face with a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And the dinosaur tried to eat him as soon as it saw him, but luckily he had his umbrella, and the umbrella got stuck in the T-Rex's mouth and gave him enough time to twist the hands on the clock, and once again, zoom, he got zapped by lightning and traveled back into the present day. Of course, he didn't have his umbrella anymore, but he was so happy to be home that he didn't even care that it was raining. That night, when he was reading the news, actually, he saw that some archaeologists had dug up some dinosaur bones and found in their mouth a strange metallic object that looked like an umbrella. The end. There you go. There's my silly made-up story about these three objects. And your stories don't have to be as long. They can be really short. They can be very simple. Like another example might be, once upon a time, there was a man waiting for the bus in the rain. And he kept checking his pocket watch because he was really impatient and he really wanted to get on the bus. And then the bus finally showed up, and the driver of the bus, to everyone's surprise, was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So instead of getting on the bus, the man just waved and said, "I'll catch the next one." The end. There you go. It can be that simple. It can be as complicated as you want. It can be as funny or as serious as you want. And then once the person's done their story, the next person flips over the next three cards and makes up a story of their own. All right. Why don't you give that a try now with your partners? Draw a bunch of pictures, shuffle them up, and give it a try. And I'll be here when you get back. Here, I'll give you another fun picture to freeze me on. Are you back? Okay, you're back. Great. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. I hope that was fun. That's one of my favorite games ever. I played it with my 4-year-old, and we ended up drawing pictures for like an hour before we even started telling stories, because the pictures were just so fun to draw. Okay, so we're coming up on the end now, so we're going to do one last game. And this one is, we're going to make up our own little storytelling board game. Okay, so how this works is we're going to need that dice we talked about earlier, right? So if you haven't got it handy, go grab it now. And again, if you don't have a dice, you can just use a bowl. And if you're just using a bowl, all you do is just write the numbers 1 through 6 and cut them out on paper and throw the little pieces in the bowl, and you can just reach in and draw a number. And that basically acts like a dice. And what you're going to do is you're going to get your dice, and you're going to get some paper. And then I also have some tokens here, as you can see, little tokens. They're just from Monopoly, but you can get them from any other game you have, or just use rocks or buttons or coins or whatever you have handy. And how this works is each of us is going to take a turn going along the board. So first we have to draw a board. Here we go. I'm going to draw mine just in the shape of an S. You can make yours any shape you'd like it to be. But bam, there we go. And I'm going to divide these up into little rectangles all the way across to down. And I want to have as many spots as I can get so that I don't run out of space and end up back at the beginning. Great. And then I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to put it at the beginning of the board. Now, on each of those squares, here's where it gets fun. We're going to write an idea or a word or a picture of a thing. So you might want to write on the first one, you might write tree. On the next one, you might draw a picture of a star. On the next one, you might draw a picture of a bus stop, right? And then maybe on the next one, you're just going to draw a ball because you like sports and stuff like that. On the next one, maybe you're going to draw a flower because, we haven't had enough flowers in our stories. I'd like to see more flowers. And so on and so forth around the board until you get all the way to the end so you have them all filled with pictures. Here's what a completed board looks like. Ta-da! Now, when you have that full completed board ready to go, you're going to put your piece at the beginning of the board, take the dice, and then roll the dice. And then you're going to move your piece that many spaces along the die, and wherever you land, that's going to be the first idea for your story. All right, so here we go. Let's see, I've landed on the flower. So I'm going to say, once upon a time, there were 3 sisters out picking flowers for their mother. Great, there's my first line of the story. Then I'm going to roll the dice again, and I'm going to move to the next thing that rolls, and the next thing, and the next thing, and I'm going to keep going until I get to the end of the board where I will end my story. So it's similar to that last game with the flipping of the cards, except this one, the board, and when you roll is what's going to give you your idea. So you don't get a chance to kind of like plan ahead which picture you're going to use when you roll, and whichever one you land on, that's the one you have to use in your story. Okay, I hope that makes a little bit of sense for you. So why don't you give that a try right now, and then when you're done, come on back and we'll wrap up and say goodbye. I'll give you a nice pose. Great. Okay, welcome back. So that brings us to the end of our little creative, lighthearted time together, and I hope you had some fun. I hope you had some laughs, and I hope you learned a little bit of a few ways to be creative with the people in your life and the people around you that you care about, because those are the people that are the most fun to create with. So thank you very much for tuning in. And before you go, actually, I'm going to give you one last little tip if you want to try this later. I'm not going to give you make you do it, but if you'd like, there's so many fun things you can do with technology in this day and age. Like, for instance, you're probably watching this on a computer or a phone or a tablet of some kind, and that tablet probably has a camera on it. And I bet even on that tablet you have some kind of video editing capabilities that you can use to put a bunch of pictures and things together. So what you can do is you can make little movies. Now, what I like to do is I like to take Lego pieces and make a little stop motion video where you just take a picture and then you move it, and you take a picture and you move it, and you take a picture and you move it, and you can make it look like they're walking around and doing things. That's one of my favorite things to do, and I've made some of those with the help of my 4-year-old son. So I'm going to show those to you at the end of this video here, just so you can see some other fun, creative things you can do with the people around you and the things that you already have on hand. So here, please enjoy the Pants Kicker Trilogy. Wow. Wow. Okay, well, I hope you had fun watching that, and hope at the very least you were inspired to make some stories of your own and create some art with the things you have and the people you have around you. Thank you very much, and happy Family Sunday.